I bid you welcome.
I welcome you to my house.
Welcome to my house.
Welcome to my home.
Hello Horror Hounds, welcome to my horror house. Our journey through the vampire films of Hammer Studios has brought us to Lust for a Vampire, the second of the so-called Karnstein trilogy, a loose trilogy of films even more loosely based on the novella Carmilla by J. Sheridan Le Fanu, a vampire story which predates Bram Stoker's Dracula by some 25 years. I think it's fair to assume that Hammer's interest in the source material is the lesbian subtext, which would allow them to create some exploitative and titillating sexy movies that would hopefully pique the interest of an audience who had perhaps grown tired of the Fargan Castle's staple that were Hammer films. Lust for a Vampire certainly, well, it puts the tit in titillation. I think where The Vampire Lovers, the film that I previously reviewed, is at least attempting to be an adaptation of Carmilla, Lust for a Vampire seems to be attempting to put as many naked boobs on screen as possible. The story, such as it is set in 1832 and a girl's finishing school in Styria. A young, attractive student, Mircalla, arrives. At the same time, a travelling author, Richard Lestrange, seriously that's the character's name, manages to sort of con his way into a teacher's position at the girls' school. Because why? Well, there are lots of pretty young girls there. That's all the motivation that he needs. Mircalla, dun dun dun, is the resurrected vampire Carmilla Karnstein. Students and people from the village begin to die, but Can Lestrange, who has become obsessed with Mircalla, break through his infatuation to realise the truth. Now, this might be a little unfair, but Lust for a Vampire does seem like a film peopled with second choices. The original director was supposed to be Terence Fisher. He broke his leg before shooting and had to be replaced by Jimmy Sangster. Ralph Bates replaced Peter Cushing, who had to back out due to his wife's illness. They had intended Ingrid Pitt to return and reprise her role as Carmilla Karnstein, and she turned it down. There are conflicting reports as to why, conflicting schedules, or she didn't like the script. Either way, she was replaced with, fair to say, a more inexperienced actress, Jutta Stensgaard. Now, from conception to shooting, personnel on movies and projects change and shift all the time, so I think it's unfair to lay all of the film's problems at the feet of this change in roster. I would certainly lay more of it at the feet of an appalling script, but let's get into the nuts and bolts of it. We kick off with the resurrection scene. A local girl is kidnapped and taken to the castle where there's a satanic ritual performed, and the tried and tested resurrection method from Dracula, Prince of Darkness, is enacted. The young kidnapped girl's throat is cut and her blood is poured over the mouldering remains of a vampire. We have a man in black again. If you remember in The Vampire Lovers, the man in black was a character who just used to pop up and look at Carmilla and look strange and then ride off, and we were absolutely none the wiser. Here, that man in black is credited as Count Karnstein, so you might argue that it's the same character, that there's a thread through these different films, and as the films go on, perhaps we learn more about this mysterious man in black. I don't think that was ever intentional, it's completely accidental, but there you are. This satanic ritual and resurrection sequence also features an incongruous insert a couple of times of a close-up of Christopher Lee's bloodshot eyes from previous Dracula movies, for reasons that are never explained. I've got nothing. If you've got a suggestion as to why they might have put it in there, the only thing I can think of is that it was maybe some sort of weird sort of attempt at subliminal association. Christopher Lee, you liked his films, didn't you? These are the same. You'll like this film too. It doesn't work if that's what they were going for. Here, under the shroud, rather than the set of dissolves, the glorious set of dissolves that we got that resurrected Christopher Lee as the Count in Dracula Prince of Darkness. There's a lot of dry ice and some light going on underneath the shroud, lighting it from the inside, where you can see the skeleton, and then the blood starts to pool. And the skeleton turns into a nubile young lady who sits up, and the shroud falls off, and she's all nudie, but we can only see her from the back, so we don't know who she is. It's Marcilla. In the previous film, Carmilla would inveigle herself into family homes like a cuckoo in the nest. Here, Carmilla insinuates herself into a girls' finishing school, again with the help of this countess figure who appeared in the previous film, of which we don't really ever find out much about. This is not our first visit to a young ladies' finishing school in a Hammer vampire movie. One featured in Brides of Dracula, but was a lot more chaste than we have here. You get the feeling that in Lust for a Vampire they're finally able to show what they wanted to within the confines of such a place, scrubby as those intentions may be. Basically, it's an excuse to show a dormitory full of girls getting ready for bed, parading around with their boobs out or in various stages of undress, later popping off for a skinny dip, which weirdly looks more at place in Camp Crystal Lake than it does in a Hammer horror movie. When author Lestrange arrives at the finishing school to sort of con his way into a teaching position, he's there when the girls are outside performing some sort of dance class, dressed in all sort of Greco-Roman flowy gowns with sinewy limbs and arms stretching all over the place, and there's a strangely carry-on feel to the proceedings. The horny young teacher going to the girls' school is he's your Jim Dale character. When he meets the class there, he claps eyes on the female teacher called Janet Playfair, I kid you not. And that outdoors dance class has weirdly got a feel of the aerobics session in Carry On Camping, when Barbara Windsor's bikini top springs off. Ralph Bates plays a Weasley teacher who spies on the girls as they get changed outside the window, all sort of whoa, and I guess he'd be either Charles Hawtrey or Peter Butterworth. The head of the school would clearly be Joan Sims. Carmilla herself, I guess, would be Amanda Barry, and you can easily see Barbara Windsor or Wendy Richards playing a couple of the students there. And this is what we're reduced to, the grand tradition of Hammer. Has it really come to this? There's not much in the way of atmosphere, there's not much in the way of gore, but there's buckets of titillation. And what happened to the lesbianism from the previous film and the character of Carmilla? The dramatic tension from this film is supposed to come from the so-called strange love between Carmilla and Lestrange, and it's her possibly genuine love for him which completely defangs the lesbian overtones of the previous film and really betrays the character of Carmilla. It's really unfortunate, and it seems to suggest when they finally hook up, she almost seems to be cured of her lesbianism, and as they say in Chasing Amy, all she needed was some deep dicking. It doesn't work. And what about that strange love? The film features a song prominently during the love scene between Lestrange and Carmilla, a song called Strange Love. As I say, it plays out during the love sequence between the two of them. It's bizarre, with lots of close-ups of Stensgaard's O-face, essentially, as her eyes cross and she's suddenly opened up to the wonders of heterosexual straight, basically vanilla, her naked, dude clothes on sex. The Man in Black has more to do in this movie than the previous one, where he just popped up, looked mysterious, and left. He actually even has some dialogue here. He pretends to be the Countess's physician, so he can hand out some really useful death certificates when bodies are discovered. He can move bodies around to cover up his ward's late night snacking, and he even tries out a handy catchphrase that he uses a couple of times in this movie: a heart attack. Stensgaard herself gives a fairly vacant performance playing Carmilla as a kind of somnambulist. The script seems to suggest that she's not necessarily in control of her actions, but is actually being puppeteered by the man in black, which is a bizarre turn of events which robs the character of all her agency, especially given that she just needs a good knobbing from Lestrange to suddenly fall in love and go, ooh. Stensgaard certainly has none of Ingrid Pitt's inner metal. It also doesn't help that her look and performance constantly bring to mind Alice Slowe's brilliant turn as Madeline Wool in Garth Marenghi's Dark Place. US viewers who haven't had a chance to check out Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, as an aside, do yourself a favour. It's hilarious. The sad thing about all of this is that it's not a bad idea that Hammer had to take a less well-known but still classic vampire story about a lesbian temptress named Carmilla and do a load of films about her. The source material provides the perfect opportunity for the melding of the literary and exploitative, which is absolutely Hammer's bag. Lust for a Vampire was perfect forbidden fodder for a young lad who was a horror fan in the early 80s, before the internet. What does it have to offer now, though? It's flat, it's badly presented, and boring. It's not horrific enough to be a decent horror film, and not sexy enough to hold its own in an age of internet porn. There's a head-scratching attempt to present the revelation of Mikala as Carmilla as some kind of Kaiser Soze moment. I don't often say this, but in the right hands, Lust for a Vampire is ripe for a remake, because everything that they attempt to do in this film, apart from showing naked breasts, they fundamentally fail at.